Hı hı.
Herkese iyi akşamlar. Mimarlar Derneği 1927'nin online etkinliğine, ilk online etkinliğine hoş geldiniz öncelikle. Konuşmacılarımızın da beraber iletişimimizi güçlendirmek adına bir teknik bir problem oldu. Konuşmacılarımızla daha farklı iletişim kurmak adına İngilizce devam edeceğim izninizle. Hello everyone, welcome to you all. This evening we are hosting our very first online event about Austrian architect Margarete Schütte-Lihotzky in collaboration with the Austrian Embassy in Ankara and the Margarete Schütte-Lihotzky Raum in Vienna. The event will start with the greetings of Lale Özgener, the head of our executive board, and Karin Traumeler, the counselor of the Austrian Embassy in Ankara. It will continue with the presentations of Kristin Zwing, the director of Margarete Schütte-Lihotzky Raum, and Thomas Fiel, the head of Hermann Hanselmann Foundation and the member of Bauhaus University Weimar. After a Q&A session, finally, we are going to open our association's very first online exhibition, which will be on Lihotzky, her life and practice. I don't want to take too much time of yours, so I would like to leave the floor to Lale Özgener.
Thank you very much for this nice introduction. I will speak first a little in Turkish and then switch to English as well. Uzunca bir aradan sonra Mimarlar Derneği 1927 olarak sizlerle birlikte olmak çok güzel. Mart'ın ortasından itibaren etkinliklerimize ara vermiştik. Tabii ki küresel pandemi nedeniyle. Ve bugünden itibaren inşallah yapabildiğimiz sıklıkla tekrar salı günleri sizlerle birlikte olmaya devam edeceğiz. Bugün konuşmacılarımızın programları çarşamba güne denk geldiği için çarşamba sizlerleyiz ama her zamanki gibi derneğimiz salı günü sizlerle buluşmayı planlıyor. Bu etkinliği Margarete Schütte-Lihotzky üzerine planladığımız bu konuşma ve sergi aslında çok uzunca bir süredir. Hatta bizim yönetim dönemimizden önceden itibaren planlamıştık. Ancak kısmet pandemi dönemine oldu. İyi ki de belki böyle oldu. Dolayısıyla iki farklı ülkeden iki tane uzman ilk defa Schütte-Lihotzky üzerine bizle araştırmalarını paylaşacaklar ve Lihotzky Vakfı'nın hazırlamış olduğu Viyana'daki konut mimarlığını Lihotzky'nin ilk defa online olarak sergileme fırsatı elde ettik. Tekrar birlikte olduğumuz için çok mutluyuz. Ben de çok uzun konuşmak istemiyorum. İzin verirseniz biraz da İngilizce bir giriş yaptıktan sonra sözü Karin'e bırakacağım. I welcome you all. We are very happy to have all of you with us in our association's space. We came back to our place after a while. We have stopped doing events since mid-March, and we are very happy to start our online events today with some distinguished speakers from Austria and Germany, as well as an accompanying exhibition. We have been planning to organize this event for some years now, but interestingly, we were able to realize it in the period of a pandemic. So maybe it kind of motivated us to put all our forces together and our will actually to organize it in collaboration with the Austrian Embassy at Ankara and Schütte-Lihotzky Raum in Vienna. I thank to both the Embassy and the Raum, as well as our speakers tonight for accepting to collaborate with us for this wonderful event. We hope to organize our regular Tuesday events as an association as much as we can under the conditions of the pandemic. and hope to see all of you again in our association online this time. So I greet again all of you one more time and leave the floor to Karin.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, dear participants. It is a pleasure to welcome you tonight in the name of the Austrian Embassy to an event about the first female Austrian architect, Margarete Schütte-Lihotzky. Known to the world mostly for designing the first fitted kitchen, Margarete Schütte-Lihotzky's legacy consists of much more. A visionary who combined functionality and aesthetics, Schütte-Lihotzky contributed to paving the way for our living spaces that we are used to nowadays. Most of us were able to start valuing our homes even more during the past month, which made us stay home more than probably ever before. And hopefully not anytime, hopefully soon it will be over and we will be less at home or only voluntarily. I want to thank our two speakers, Mrs. Christine Zwingel and Mr. Thomas Flier, for taking time tonight to tell us more about this outstanding woman, her life and work. Both speakers are renowned experts who have been researching Margarete Schütte-Lihotzky for many, many years. My thanks also go to the Memoirs in Ankara for organizing this event together with us. I sincerely hope that the next common event will happen with physical presence of all of you. Thank you and enjoy the speakers. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Before starting your presentation, if she is ready, let me introduce Christine Zwingel to our audience first. She was born in Vienna and studied architecture at Technical University Vienna. She worked on the classification of Margarete Schütte-Lihotzky's archive and the research project supported by FWF. It resulted in the first exhibition of the architect with her complete works at MAK Museum of Applied Arts in Vienna. She worked as a freelance architect with a focus on residential housing. She taught at the HTL, Mödling, and TU Vienna. Since 2014, she is the head of the Margarete Schütte-Lihotzky realm. Her research focuses on women in architecture. We are really happy to have you here today, Kristen. If you are ready, floor is yours.
Okay. Hello and good evening. Can you hear me? Yeah?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. So good evening and thank you very much for the introduction. Thank you for the invitation to take part in this online talk. Thank you very much, Mrs. Özgenel and the Architects Association 1927 in Ankara for this collaboration, and Mrs. Karin Traun-Müller from the Austrian Embassy for your contribution and commitment to this project. So now I think I would share the Bildschirm, yeah? The screen?
Yes, please.
Es muss aktiviert werden. Please activate.
Can you try it now again, please?
Okay. Okay, it's working. It's an honor.
We don't have the image yet. Maybe it will take a few minutes to upload it. We see a gray screen now.
But I think it will come.
Yeah, I think so.
It looks very good with me.
Mm-hmm. We can see the cursor. We can see the mouse cursor. We can see your desktop right now.
Oh my goodness. Now?
Yes, we can see now.
Okay. Okay, so let's start again. It's an honor for me to speak about the life and work of the Austrian architect Margarete Schütte-Lihotzky. Margarete Schütte-Lihotzky, or Margarete Lihotzky, was born in Vienna in 1897 and died in Vienna in the year 2000. Her lifetime compassed the whole 20th century with a lot of important international history venues. In reference to the online exhibition, I will focus on her Viennese residential building projects, and I'm pleased to introduce our project, the Margarete Schütte-Lihotzky Raum. So first, some words to the exhibition space in Vienna. The Margarete Schütte-Lihotzky Raum sets out to present the life and work of this Austrian female architect who was one of the first women in Austria in this profession. We want to continue and to highlight the work she started as an architect and as well her part in supporting women and the peace movement. The intention of Margarete Schütte-Lihotzky Raum is to display her life, work, and major contributions to architecture in relation to the social condition and history of women in the 20th century. It is also used to stage exhibitions of other architects and artists and will act as an open forum for interested people for discourse and debate. One of our main projects is Margarete Schütte-Lihotzky, Her Traces in Vienna. It is intended to make Margarete Schütte-Lihotzky known as a Viennese and Austrian architect with a comprehensive work which goes far beyond the Frankfurt kitchen, which is her only work a lot of people know or combine with the name or the person Schütte-Lihotzky. The women of Margarete Schütte-Lihotzky Club, who founded Margarete Schütte-Lihotzky Raum in 2014, are convinced of the importance of role models. We have been feeling the lack of women in our history in general awareness. The Margarete Schütte-Lihotzky Raum is the first space in Vienna to stage a woman, her life, work, and contributions for society. Our exhibitions give information to the periods or topics of her life. For example, there were her first years in Vienna, resistance and liberation, and the exhibition Stories and Histories of Living, what we call in German Wohngeschichten. And this is the exhibition, the online exhibition you will see afterwards. Now let's start with Margarete Lihotzky's life. She studied at the Kunstgewerbeschule, today the University of Applied Arts Vienna. This is the building in Vienna, in the Ringstraße, in the city center of Vienna, and one of her first drawings or designs of a dressing table in 1917. Her start as a self-employed architect in 1919 coincided with the era of political change after the First World War, with the end of the monarchy, of the Austrian-Hungarian monarchy, and beginning of the First Republic of Austria. And 1919 was the first year of women's right to vote and when women were allowed to attend technical high school. Her first works were related to the Viennese settlement movement at the beginning of the 1920s and the era of Red Vienna. The settlement movement emerged from poverty and a lack of housing in the city of Vienna. Grete Lihotzky, as a young architect, focused on designing small homes and, from the beginning, from the rationalization of domestic work. This is one of her first projects, or one of a typical settlement house, or settler's house, a terraced house, and yeah, you see, very small and easy thing. They are all typological projects. Another example, Eden Colony, a built project, a built example in the 14th district at the western periphery of Vienna. Another idea of these times was a type of a core house, a house with the possibilities to expand with extensions or additions. On the ground floor plan, you can see the living room combined with the kitchen and another small room and a separate small room with a sink and the exit to the garden. Settler's life, or you see here the kitchen for the settler's house. It was a kind of living room with a kitchen. The kitchen was for cooking and heating. They used wood for heating and cooking. And this drawing shows one of her types, of her ideas. And the photograph is from a built model house built in 1923 at a big exhibition in front of the town hall of Vienna. So here you see the living room with the kitchen and a small door to the next separate room. And here we are. This is a kind of kitchenette with a sink unit. And this is a very special thing. Here you see this separate small room with a sink for everything to be done with water, washing dishes, clothes, and bathing. But this very special object, designed already with all the considerations of hand movements and step savings, it was the first ready-made in housing, because she thought this piece, one ready-made, made of concrete. So it was a very new idea, and she got a design protection certificate for it. Yeah, so we say this is the first fitted kitchen made in Vienna, already in 1922. Yeah, in these times, Vienna had a socialist government, and they started to do something for housing for all. And the decision was to build these multi-story residential complexes, big ones, yeah. And Schütte-Lihotzky and a team of modern architects did this Benarski-Hof or Otto-Haas-Hof. This is the name from this residential complex. It was built in 1924 to 1925. Here you see a picture from a photograph from 1925. This is the part Schütte-Lihotzky designed. And yeah, it shows her idea that even in multi-story blocks, every flat should have some free space, should have a terrace or a balcony. And you can see that every flat has loggia, we say loggia, something like a free space here inside. With her first ideas, she wanted to have terraces on both sides of the house, but this is the finished and built object, and the construction plan shows small loggias for every flat. So yeah, it's still very nice to live in. This is a photograph of last year. Another project in Vienna, the Werkbund Siedlung, built in 1930 and ready in 1932. A model settlement in Vienna built after 1930 with a general site plan from architect Josef Frank. He invited 30 international architects and one woman architect, Margarete Schütte-Lihotzky, to design small homes. Here you see her, oh, sorry. Here you see her project. This is a cube. It's something like a cube with a side length of 6 by 6 by 6 meters. And here you see again photographs of last year. Yeah, they are all well done, and people like to live inside. She did this project already from Frankfurt am Main, and in 1932 she was already in Moscow living, and saw the houses completed on a visit to Vienna. So very short, in Frankfurt am Main. In 1926, Margarete Lihotzky went to Frankfurt am Main in Germany, called by Ernst May to the engineering department of the city administration, where they developed new urban districts in Frankfurt. She worked at the standardization section, where she developed the Frankfurt kitchen. Here, just to show it. In 1927, she married Wilhelm Schütte, architect and colleague at the engineering department, and called herself Schütte-Lihotzky. But in 1930, Margarete and her husband Wilhelm Schütte joined a group of experts who went to the Soviet Union, facing the task of planning new cities for living and industry. Margarete headed the petition for kindergarten and all buildings for children. Here you see one of the examples. There are a lot of different kindergarten types for all the different locations in this very huge country. Yeah, during these years, they made long journeys to China and Japan in 1934. They left Moscow in 1937, searching for exile in Paris and London, and finally they took residence in Istanbul, Turkey in 1938, with positions at the Academy of Fine Arts, Istanbul, and the practice office of the Ministry of Education. I just want to show one very interesting example of her works. Her typological village school projects to lower the rate of illiteracy. But my colleague Thomas Flierl will tell you a lot about these times. In Turkey, she spent a bit more than 2 years from 1938 to 1940, safe but crucial years in times of beginning World War II, which were on a turning point in the middle of her life. There were more foreign architects experts in Turkey, especially from Austria, Clemens Holzmeister and Herbert Eichholzer, who worked in Holzmeister's office. Eichholzer was the head of a group of Austrians in the resistance against National Socialism. Margarete joined this group and thereby became a member of the Communist Party. She went on a trip to Vienna in December 1940 transporting secret messages and contacts. After a few weeks in Vienna, she was arrested by the Gestapo. She had to stay in jail in Vienna, and after her trial later in Eichach, Bavaria, for more than 4 years. Horrible times till the end of the war in 1945. Death sentence was requested for her, but she survived with great luck and help from her husband, who had to stay in Turkey. So after these years, at the beginning of 1947, she returned to Vienna together with her husband Wilhelm Schütte to start. Oh, I forget to show you this. Drawing from Margarete from her time in jail, in prison. After the beginning of 1947, she returned to Vienna together with her husband Wilhelm Schütte to start a second life, as she called it. Vienna, her home city, after the war, was widely destroyed and occupied by Allied forces. The architects recognized the grand task of reconstruction of the city and wanted to take part in this challenge. She made contact with the Vienna City Council, and one of her first works was the participation in a big exhibition in the town hall of Vienna, Wien baut auf, something like Vienna Rising, in 1947. What I show here sketches for an exhibition draft. What should new homes look like? This sketch shows her thoughts about reconstruction, which included the idea of people's participation in the planning process. But the idea was not accepted and implemented by the City Council. It was not the only one the City Council did not take. Her experiences and the main focus of her work were in the field of housing and her social awareness. But city orders were only 2 residential projects. I show you here the first one. It's a building she did together with Wilhelm Schütte. It's a small building, very typical at the end of the 1940s in Vienna. A typical living floor plan. And there was another small housing project she got in 1952. But there was a kindergarten project. The kindergarten in the 20th district on the Kapaumplatz in Vienna, built in 1952. It's a municipal kindergarten, and it was the 150th kindergarten of the city of Vienna. It is an important project which shows her experience with this task. You see it has 4 groups. Each group has its own area and garden. This building is still in use. The house has a special atmosphere. Kindergarten, teacher, and children like it. The work of architect Schütte-Lihotzky is to be seen in the context and the contradiction in times of the Cold War. As a member of the Communist Party, she had to deal with the public denial and boycott. She had to pass a period of about 10 years without any public contract. After this time, there was another kindergarten contract. This is a kindergarten in the 11th district of Vienna. The floor plan shows the concept of a central hall with groups on every side. This was based on an idea she had for the first time in Frankfurt in 1928. You see, the house has 4 groups on the ground floor and a 5th one on the top. Many planning elements refer to children, such as transparency through low windows for a view to the garden, play niches with low ceiling heights. The architect knew already the book of Maria Montessori, and she always referred to that in her designs. The kindergarten is still in use, like the beginning. It is an oasis for children. Beside the professional work, she was involved in supporting women and the peace movement. She was one of the founders of the Democratic Women's Association Austria and its first president from 1948 to 1969. This is just an example where she was speaking at a demonstration. Another example, she established the Urania Women Committee to show anti-fascist and anti-war films. This committee worked for 34 years. The films took place in an adult education center with a big cinema studio. Another thing is that she did a lot of publications. Here you see an example of her article, Planning and Building Women It Concerns to You. So she always tried to speak to women and to hold them in the planning process and to give ideas and to speak with them. At the end of I wanted to say that that she did also a lot of articles about her project and also about personalities she had met or with whom she was friends. At the end of the 1970s, she started writing her memoirs. And the most important part she finished first was her Memoirs out of the Resistance. The first edition was published in 1985. Yeah, it's very good to read. It's like creamy. Margarete Schütte-Lihotzky lived in her last 30 years in an attic apartment with a roof terrace. She planned this apartment according to her needs and could enjoy her roof garden. From the beginning of her work, or from the early days of her work in residential construction and the settlement movement, she was convinced of the positive effects of open space for every apartment. Light, air, and sun for everyone, for everybody. Yeah, Margarete Schütte-Lihotzky on her terrace, and this is the photograph we used for our poster for the exhibition. Mm-hmm. The main aim of her life experience was the correlation of society, humanity, and functional professional aspects in architecture and urban planning. When she was already in her 80s, she got public recognition, honors, and several honorary doctorates. Margarete Schütte-Lihotzky was an extraordinary woman with high self-confidence, reliance, cheerfulness, interest and participation to political occasions, and with vitality anyway. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Kristen. Thank you so much. Yes. Thank you again. Now we plan to have the question and answer session in the end. So now we will continue with Thomas Field's presentation on Lihotzky's exile years. Before his presentation, I would like to introduce him briefly. He was born in Berlin and studied philosophy and aesthetics at Humboldt University, Berlin. He received his PhD degree in 1985 and worked many years in cultural administration and politics. Among other things, he was head of the cultural administration, cultural administration of the borough of Prenzlauer Berg of Berlin, city councilor of urban planning in the borough of Mitte from Berlin, minister of science, research and culture of Berlin. After this period, he became an independent researcher in the field of history and architecture, urban planning and culture. Currently, he is the head of Hermann Henselmann Foundation, the member of the scientific board of Ernst May Association, and the member of the Bauhaus University, Weimar. His research focus is modernism in the 20th century, especially the work of foreign architects in the Soviet Union. Through the working biographies of Margaret Schütte-Lihotzky and Wilhelm Schütte, he also dealt with their time in Turkey. Okay, now let me leave the floor to Thomas. Thank you being here today, Thomas.
Yes.
I will share the presentation, so I kindly ask a few minutes. Yeah, here. Not this one, sorry. Let me try again. Yanlış şey gösteriyor. Sorry. Maybe I should close one of the PDFs that I have. Yeah. I think we are good to go now. Whenever you are ready.
Okay, fine. Ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues, thank you very much for the introduction, for the invitation, for the possibility to meet each other, but only online. But I hope you will enjoy my presentation. I would like to speak about the architect couple Margarete Schütte-Lihotzky and Wilhelm Schütte, and I want to talk about the two stages of their life from Frankfurt to Moscow in the Soviet Union and later to Turkey. Germany has made a significant contribution, of course, in a very bad way, to the history of migration of architects in the 20th century. On the one hand, because Germany, as a highly developed country, already had a large number of professional architects in the 1930s, and because the modern architecture movement was particularly widespread here. On the other hand, the political and aesthetic breach between the Nazi regime and the modernism of the Weimar Republic was particularly radical, forcing many intellectuals, including architects, to emigrate. If they were of Jewish origin, supporters of the international new building movement, which had come together in 1928 in La Sarraz, Switzerland, to form the International Congresses of Modern Architecture, CIAM, or if they even were politically active in one of the left-wing parties, they hardly found work opportunities in Germany after 1933 and had to fear repression. While some well-known architects still briefly hoped that the Nazis would soon realize that the new German architecture they were calling for already existed, for many well-known modern architects, the only option left was to emigrate to abroad or to choose internal immigration by venturing into industrial construction, private residential construction, or giving up their professional work altogether. Renowned architects like Walter Gropius, Erich Mendelssohn, Bruno Taut, and Ludwig Mies van der Rohe took part in this exodus of modern architects from Germany. The case of the Austrian-German architect couple Margarete Schütte-Lihotzky and Wilhelm Schütte is somewhat different. Theirs was a particular variant of labor migration as a result of the world economic crisis in 1929 and the collapse of the municipal housing construction in the large cities in Germany. In contrast, the state and planned economy industrial development in the Soviet Union during the first 5-year plan appeared to open up new perspectives, not only for Soviet citizens, but also for architects from Western countries. The architect couple went to the Soviet Union in 1930 and worked there until 1937. Only after the Nazis came to power in 1933 did their migration take a character of political immigration, which finally led them to Turkey in 1938. The second peculiarity is that the memory of the architect couple was essentially shaped by the image of the female architect turned resistance fighter. As a result of her biblical age, she lived to be almost 103 years old, her person outshone that of her husband for a long time. And now we can research the life of both of them. The Viennese Margarete Schütte-Lihotzky came to Frankfurt am Main in 1926, where she worked on the new Frankfurt under the direction of the city planning councillor Ernst May. During the Werkbund exhibition in 1927 in Stuttgart, she was in charge of the construction management for the demonstration building made by prefabricated parts. You see it on the left side. In Frankfurt am Main, she met her future husband, the architect Wilhelm Schütte, both married in April 1927. Until 1930, they lived together in a house with a roof terrace in one of the new Frankfurt housing estates. While Margarete designed the famous Frankfurt kitchen and the sheets in the nearby residence gardens for the new housing estates, for example, here the so-called Römerstadt, Wilhelm Schütte was constructing school buildings. The Frankfurt kitchen, Christina always mentioned it, was a thoroughly rationalized studio of housework separate from the dining room. Thousands of these kitchens with their standardized furniture were installed in the new Frankfurt housing estates. The Bauer's sheets were designed in a similarly rational fashion, serving both work and recreation in the gardens, which extended the space in the flats, which was necessarily very limited, into green space. In the next, please. In this joint design of a bungalow, we see the experiences of the Viennese settlement movement, the concept of the expandable core house with the idea of the wall of a classroom opening up towards the garden, an idea that originated in reform school construction. When Frankfurt's city building councillor Ernst May took charge of the planning and construction of new cities in the USSR, he presented his 17 comrades in arms in the September issue of the magazine Das Neue Frankfurt. Margarete Schütte-Lihotzky was presented not by a kitchen, but with a design for a hostel for female students. On the other side, Wilhelm Schütte was presented with his school buildings. Here, his school in the Römerstadt, built in 1929, together with Martin Elsässer. And especially he was presented with his progressive educational concept of the pavilion school, with its classrooms facing the garden or on the upper floors a terrace. The motto of air, light and sun determined not only the residential buildings but also the school buildings. When the group of architects surrounding Ernst May moved to the Soviet Union in 1930, it was a spectacular political event. The members of the group were by no means party communists, but sympathized with the concept of state economic modernization. They wanted to transfer the experience of social housing construction in Germany to the construction of new socialist cities in the Soviet Union. The experts lived together with their families in the courtyard building of this recently built residential complex in Moscow. To date, some 20 cities are known for which the Trust Standard Go project, Standard City project, led by Ernst May, has developed urban planning and design typical buildings from cities in Western Siberia, in the Urals, from Nizhny Novgorod and Stalingrad to the Donbass region in Ukraine. Most of them were new towns in connection with the creation of new metallurgical combines at coal or at iron or iron ore deposits. While the Americans supplied the industrial plants, the residential towns were built under the direction of mainly modern German or Dutch or Swiss architects. The most important project was Magnitogorsk in the Urals. A huge metallurgical combine had been built on the magnetic mountain where iron ore was extracted by open cast mining. The residential town was designed to house between 100,000 to 200,000 inhabitants. Here you can see the first urban planning design for Magnitogorsk from November 1930. Next, please. The main structuring element of the town was a quarter with about 5 to 10,000 inhabitants.
Doldurayım peki. Nasıl yapacağız?
Can I have to interrupt? Well, what is the problem? Okay. Can I continue? Okay, I will do so.
Yes, Thomas, please.
Okay. The main structuring element of the town was the quarter, in Russian kvartal, with about 5 to 10,000 inhabitants and all the associated municipal facilities such as children's facilities, schools, medical practices, shops, factories, etc. This plan clearly shows that Wilhelm Schütte's school building with its gable is a central focus of the residential quarter, while Margarete Schütte's children's facilities are located on the edge of the residential area. And the next photo of the first quarter in Magnitogorsk from the years 1931-32, there you can see the completed buildings of the architect couple, Wilhelm Schütte's White School and Margarete Schütte-Lihotzky's children's facilities, which are still under construction. Christine showed us sometime before the draft of this building. Please one back. Oh yeah, this is a school. The central building contains the assembly hall and the teachers' rooms, and the side wings are designed without the barrack-like corridors typical of school buildings of that time, because they would not have fit the progressive educational concept. Separate staircases provide access to 2 classrooms on each floor. This way, each classroom gets natural light from 2 sides. The covered corridor on the ground floor ensures horizontal distribution in view of the continental climate. The sports hall and workshops are located as separate structures at the end of the building wings. And here you can see the kids club of Margarete Schütte-Lihotzky in the second quarter of Magnitogorsk. One of the architects' joint projects for Moscow was the design of a Polytechnic Station, which was to comprise a primary school, a technical college, a vocational school, as well as an auxiliary school and a kindergarten. The station was also to include various scientific institutes for polytechnic education. Unfortunately, it was only a project. Several kindergartens are known to have been designed by Margarete Schütte-Lihotzky, like this one in Novokuznetsk in West Siberia, and the next picture, please, and this one in Orsk in the south of Urals. The buildings are well preserved because they are used as kindergartens to this day. This school by Wilhelm Schütte for 960 pupils was also built in Novokuznetsk in West Siberia. However, the fate of the couple's joint designs for the Donbass in Ukraine is unknown. Here the design for a secondary school in Makeyevka and the next school also for Makeyevka, in which the then new principle of separate rooms for different school subjects was applied. With the political motivated turn to neoclassicism since 1932-33, the conditions for the work of modern architecture also deteriorated in the Soviet Union. Foreign architects were increasingly pushed out of the professional fields of urban planning and architecture. For some time, the couple were able to keep their heads above water by designing furniture and interiors for children's facilities, setting standards for school construction, or writing essays on architecture abroad. Margarete Schütte-Lihotzky and Wilhelm Schütte left the Soviet Union in 1937. If they had not renewed their German passports abroad, they would have had to stay in the Soviet Union or to return to Nazi Germany. Neither of these was an option for them. They went to Paris. On their way from Moscow to Paris, they stopped in Istanbul in 1937, and met their old friend Bunu Taut, whom they had visited in Japan in 1934. Bunu Taut was head of the building department of the Ministry of Education, and at the same time head of the architectural department at the Academy of Fine Art in Istanbul, the Güzel Sanatlar Akademisi. There he had taken over the practice office set by Ernst Egli, the Tatbikat Büro. Although Taut asked both Schüttes to stay in Istanbul, they left for Paris. After a long wait, they managed to renew their passports. Due to a lack of job opportunities in Paris and London, the couple finally accepted Bunu Taut's offer, and in July 1938 signed 3-year employment contracts with the representative of the Turkish Ministry of Education in Paris, Avni Bajman. In Turkey, the two architects once again encountered a state-initiated catch-up modernization of the country. At the same time, they had learned their lesson from the Soviet Union. Modernization projects cannot be realized without taking regional building traditions into account. Now, both architects are working, the next please, yes, thank you. Now both architects are working in Istanbul under the direction of Professor Bunu Taut in the Tatbikat Büro at the Academy of Fine Art. A first trip led both architects to village schools in the vicinity of Ankara and Istanbul. The purpose of their trip was to study the local architecture and the climatic and topographical conditions. The photo shows both architects with ministry officials in front of the Karapürsek school. The building, constructed of clay and natural stones, is exemplary for rural architecture, to which the architects were respond with their own modern concept. The aim was to design types of expandable village schools that could be built by villagers themselves under the instruction of specialists. Margarete Schütte-Lihotzky fulfilled this order. This already Christine had shown us. Margarete Schütte-Lihotzky produced that 11-page brochure of the Ministry of Education, and it shows us 7 different types of schools, from a school with 30 children and a small flat for the village teacher, to the maximum size of 3 classrooms for 180 pupils and 2 teacher flats. The brochure also contains this drawing by Margarete Schütte-Lihotzky, which emphasizes the harmonious integration of these schools into the village landscape. However, none of these designs were actually realized. In 1941, an architectural competition was held for village schools and the corresponding functional buildings, and the winners were 2 Turkish architects, Azim Mutlu and Azen Yapana. Their school construction projects were carried out throughout Turkey in the 1940s. Unfortunately, this design by Margaret Schütte, the extension of the school building by Ernst Egli in Ankara, was not realized either. At the same time, Wilhelm Schütte supported Bruno Taut in the construction of the Atatürk Lyceum in Ankara. But there was also a joint design by our 2 architects. Here's a temporary festive arrangement at the head of Galata Bridge in Karaköy on the occasion of the 15th anniversary of the Turkish Republic in 1938. And as you can see, this design was actually realized. There are also designs for private owners, unfortunately also not realized, here for a small villa in Ankara. Margarete Schütte-Lihotzky and Wilhelm Schütte also appeared together in the survey of the magazine Yeni Adam, the New Man, in April 1939. The editors asked for comments on the work of this architect Mimar Sinan. When asked about Sinan's best work, the couple named the Sokolu Mehmet Pasha Camii in Istanbul. At the same time, they confirmed that Sinan's work had, quotation, the same significance for Turkish architecture as classical Greek works, by representing the national character of Turkish art with such a strong force and quality. These works represent, like the works of Goethe or Beethoven, an asset to the culture of all mankind. After Margarete Schütte-Lihotzky traveled to Vienna in December 1940, where she was arrested, Wilhelm remained alone in Istanbul, first as a lecturer and later as a professor at the Academy of Fine Art. Wilhelm Schütte published a large number of articles, especially in the architectural magazine Architect, but also in Cumhuriyet. Let me also present an interesting aspect of the life of the architect couple in Istanbul, the house and the flat of the 2 architects. This famous photo shows the couple on the terrace of their flat in the Chili apartment. The house is located in the 2nd row above the Bosporus in Kabataş. The Schüttes did not live in just any house, but in a tenement building designed by Zeki Sayar, the Istanbul architect, journalist, and editor of the magazine Architect, which has been published since 1935. And in issue 1 of the year 1936, Sayar published his Çili Kira Evi Taksim on 8 pages. The exterior and interior views, as well as the floor plans of the 5 and 6 rooms flat, give an impression of the building's spaciousness. On the left, the next please. On the left, the facade to the Bosporus, and on the right, the entrance facing the street. And here, next, the ground plan for the building, and the white picture shows us the flat of the Schüttes. This is, of course, interesting for the biographer, because in this way, the private photos from the couple's estate can now also be spatially assigned. Margarete Schütte-Lihotzky only lived in this flat for about 2 years. She decided to take a career trip to Vienna for the illegal resistance organization of the Austrian Communist Party. Apparently, she visited her sister there. An informer of the secret state police Gestapo betrayed her and the entire illegal organization. Arrested in January 1940, she was sentenced to 15 years in prison in September 1941 and was only released at the end of the war in 1945. But Wilhelm Schütte was also involved in the resistant fight against the Nazi regime. With the knowledge of the Comintern in Moscow, he worked for the British Military Secret Service, a fact which has only recently become known. Also, not a Nazi, quite the contrary, Wilhelm Schütte was interned in Yozgat, 200 kilometers east of Ankara, after diplomatic relations between Germany and Turkey were broken off in 1943. This was bitter, as some of his professional colleagues, such as the architect Paul Bonatz or the sculptor Rudolf Belling, who had always been loyal to Nazi Germany, were allowed to continue their work. Schütte returned to Istanbul only after the end of the war, but did not find re-employment at the Academy of Art. Even when Schütte asked to be granted the cost of his return to Germany, he was turned down. Here you can read it in Turkish. It was not until November 1946, after more than 5 years of separation, that the architect couple meet again in Sofia. She had gone to meet her husband and he her. By a stroke of luck, the correspondence of the spouses during their separation from 1941 and 1945 has been largely preserved. And this book I am now preparing for, in this I will also deal in detail with the time in Turkey, and is due to be published this year. I hope I can solve the task this year, and thank you very much for your attention. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Thomas, for your rich and detailed presentation. If it's all right for you, now we can switch to question and answer session. I think both of the presentations triggered some questions in the audience mind. You can raise your hands, by the way. Sorry, I need to skip the gallery move maybe. In order to ask a question, you can raise your hand digitally or manually, wherever you like. For raise your hand digitally, you can click a participant panel, and on the very bottom of the panel, you can see raise hand option, and that's how you can raise hands. Or also, I don't think we are too crowded. You can also ask the write the chat box, and we can leave the floor to you to ask your question. Is there any question? Or anyone who would like to contribute to issues raised here?
Thank you very much for both of the presentations. I think they have complemented each other in the best way they could. We had, actually personally, I have learned many things about this amazing woman and also her husband, things that I didn't know before. My question is to Thomas. I was wondering whether the projects you have shown from Turkey, are these the only projects that the couple had designed or built, or there are more, but you just showed a selection of them?
There were only a few projects because Margarete Schütte-Lihotzky has a contract only for 1 year. That means the contract was closed. That means he has a labor contract only for 1 year. And the Tatbikat Bureau Sü, the praxis office by the Ministry of Education, also was closed when the follower of Bunu Taut died in the end of 1938, and then Robert Vorhölzer, a German conservative architect, came to Istanbul. The Tatbikat Bureau was closed, and the very productively connection between education and designing for the needs of the Ministry of Education was ended. And that's why we have only these few projects from the first years. And later maybe we could find, but there was a fire in the Academy of Fine Arts in Istanbul. Maybe we could find some pupil drafts or projects by Wilhelm Schütte, because he was professor from 1940 to 1943 when he was interned in Yozgat. And that is a problem. We couldn't, unfortunately, not present more projects from the time in Turkey.
Thank you.
Ayşen Hoca has a question.
Well, not really a question. I just wanted to thank you both. It was very revealing, in the middle of, for you, nowhere. And in these difficult times, it was very motivating to see the couple's smiling faces after going through all these, difficulties in life. You just list them one after another as if it's an easy move to leave the country and try to find refuge in another environment, which was very fascinating. Both their goal and ideologically and architecturally what they were after, and the life they led. That was very inspiring. I just, as an architect, as a woman, I don't know, maybe it's very obvious, but designing only houses and kindergartens for a woman was meant to be. I mean, she had to know best, or is just a coincidence? It's a mere coincidence. I mean, a woman designing only houses, kitchen, and kindergarten.
Christine, willst du? Du musst dein Mikrofon anstellen.
Okay. I think Margarete should have liked to design any building construction. Maybe something like a museum or some other big deal. She said that sometimes. But on the other hand, housing and all these solving all these social problems of housing, including kindergartens and schools, and so this is a big challenge. And she always, was there and looked at these problems, and was one of the architects who was facing it and dealing with it. And so I really think this is a great thing, to work all the years on this task and on these goals, to make it, the best houses and best buildings for children, to make the best, to bring the best ideas to domestic work, to make women's life easier and better going, and to make their life fit for the 20th century. So I think it's a political idea, of course, yeah, and a really social consciousness, yeah, in all her work and her life, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, Figen Işık has a remark.
Yeah, thank you so much, both Christine and Thomas. I would like to add to Christine's comment on Ayşen's remark. Actually, Ayşen's remark is really relevant. I mean, women architects only designing kitchens and houses and kindergartens, nurseries, etc. But in as far as I know, Margarete Schütte-Lihotzky's situation, when we think of the Frankfurt kitchen, actually the thing is that, as far as I know, she doesn't cook.
Yes.
She doesn't know how to cook. So she, inspired by Taylorism and everything, she designs a completely rational kitchen for a woman, for a household. But later we see that women do not want to, so strict about their daily practices in kitchen, and they start hacking. I mean, all the boxes and everything. So she's actually very rational, not like, a woman architect destined to live her career during 40s, I guess. So the Frankfurt kitchen is really significant for that.
Yeah. Yes, this is a really rational project. Yes, I agree with you. This was a solution of all this thinking about rationalism, and just to solve it in that decision with this ground floor in Frankfurt. And there were Frankfurt kitchens in all the flats of all the Frankfurt living estates, in a very different kind. It's not only the one, the one we showed. I have been showing now, because this is only the most shown and the typical one. What to say? It's she never cooked. She solved this task, to do the best, and you always were speaking about it. In that time, in these times, it was the best solution. And for this way of living, for this kind of housing and settlements, they all together, this typological department, found this kind of ground floor, with the type. And as well, there was a very important thing of the technical development, for the facilities of these settlements. They had already gas for cooking, and they had a central heating system. So these were very technical steps, important technical steps, to build. So maybe I stop. Please.
I would say you have to see 17 architects and 1 woman went to Soviet Union. And of course, there was an internal hierarchy. And of course, the woman was responsible for the children institutions, for the children's facilities. I think we have to notice that there are a social distinction between the competences of these architects. But Margarete Schütte-Lihotzky took this role for its own and translate the modernist standards for this task. But of course, it was a kitchen and a rationalized kitchen by Taylorism and Fordistic way of life, and no man could manage this new studio for house work. It was defined for the woman, of course. And but the question of kitchen and children education, of course, is the main problem of transforming the traditional family. The same questions we have found in the Soviet Union, the discussion about the individual flats for families or the communal houses, and really the separation of the kids. They had to live in a own republic and so on, in separation of the parents. And of course, these are where the programmatic cultural question of progress, how to organize living together and how to share the household and the work in the residential areas. But we have to see, for my mind, the question is really wide. No other architects could take over this task, and she solved it in the very interesting, and of course from our time now to criticize the way. Of course, it's a type of historical standard, and of course we can learn from this type of Frankfurt kitchen. It's not the idea for the kitchen. It's only not the rural kitchen. It's not the proletarian kitchen. Of course, in the kitchen there was the communication of the whole family of many generations. It was not the studio to prepare the meal for the small family of only a couple, of course.
Ercan, sorry, Kristen. There are some more questions. Would you like to continue, Kristen?
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, Ercan Arbaş wrote that he has a question and he'd like to contribute to discussion. And then Bernadette Reinhold, maybe we can switch the order.
Oh, hello.
Hello.
So, Christine and Thomas, thank you very much for the wonderful presentations. I was kicked out twice because I'm participating here from Oman. It's really far away, and I don't know, something didn't work well. But what I could what I could get from your presentations is that the focus on social housing. So my question would be, it's really interesting that 100 years ago, there was such a movement for social housing in Europe and even in Turkey, then we can say, because of the European architects. And seeing nowadays the social housing situation in Turkey, do you think, it's a more a personal question, do you think that a kind of movement like this, again, thoughts and ideas from Europe can help to improve the social housing situation in Turkey?
Oh, this is a question to the Turkish architects, I think so. Or Thomas, can you answer? I'm sorry, but I'm not.
No, the situation in Turkey really good, but of course I have the experience that the Turkish society is a very different society. It's a modern society. It's a developing society. So that I think that the idea of cooperative construction movement is everywhere in modernization and modernized society interesting. And of course we have, and you have to study all the different types of flat plans and to prove how you can live in these structures and how to construct these structures. Of course, the only way by neoliberalism to buy and to build the own flat would be not the answer for the future, I think. And the big cities and the urbanization put us together before the problem of guarantee the civil right of housing.
Thank you. Maybe we can continue with Bernadette.
Hi, thank you very much for your talk, and thank you to the organizers to have this talk. I'm from the University of Applied Arts in Vienna, and I met Christine Zwingel today, and she told me that we have this evening, so thank you. And we are very lucky because at our university we have the estate of the Margarete Schütte-Lihotzky. So I have one question and some remarks. So concerning the kitchen, Christina and Thomas, I think you will know it. In her memory, she's writing that Ernst May in Frankfurt thought it was a good idea that a woman is making as a marketing effect the design of the kitchen, and to have a lot of events to present it and to make it popular. So it was built for more than 10,000 times in Frankfurt. And I think we have to consider from the aspect of design history that kitchen wasn't a room for put on the focus. Of course, some at the same time, Taut wrote about kitchen and others. So, but a kitchen was, on the one hand, the room at the rural, at the farmers' houses, Thomas mentioned it, or it was a room, a space behind where other people were working and the work was invisible. So that what they made modern architect and Schütte-Lihotzky as the front woman to make this kitchen as a design object. Also, there are many aspects, but I think we also have to consider it from this aspect. And as Christine said, and also others, she was very interested in technical development. So I think it was Thomas who showed a photo from 1927, where she stood in front of the Stuttgarter Weißenhof-Siedlung, the famous Werkbundsiedlung. And she had developed prefabricated walls. So she was in the office for typological. So, and Tammy, if you know, she was interested until the end of her life in technical development until she was 90 something. So I think she had no children by her own. She didn't cook. But I think it was some, as Thomas, I don't want to repeat it again, it was some contribution that, of course, a woman has to do with children's stuff. But I think it was much more than this. So, and for the question of housing and social housing, I think it was in, please correct me, in 1929, there was a CIAM conference building on the existence minimum, building also a Bauen am Existenzminimum. And of course, it was her roots in Vienna, and she was sent from her professor during her study to go to the workers' not settlement, but to the workers' housing. And maybe you mentioned it, Christine. And she was from a bourgeois family, but she was very stressed by the situation. So I think her social commitment was always with her until the end. And of course, she was a very political person. And the other thing is, and I think especially what I learned about Turkey, the projects in the Soviet Union and also in Turkey, is that she was always looking for the climate situation. So I think it's quite very actual what she did. So and also the self-building, or the do-it-yourself construction way. So as I understood it, so we did a conference 2 years ago at my university, and Christina and Thomas were contributors. So I think she in Turkey she was traveling around with Wilhelm and looking for cultural aspects. How does people live? What kind of material is easy to get without a lot of costs? What can people build by themselves? So she learned a lot of her time in Vienna, when the settlement routes were, of course, a self-building route. So I think there are many aspects. She was about 40 years old, so she had experience, and I think she did it in Turkey as well as in Siberia, where of course the climates were very different. So Thomas showed this photo with the corridor, the covered corridor at the schools, because of course the temperature was getting low, and there is my one question, Thomas. We are very looking forward your book, and as I understood it, is the letter exchange of Wilhelm and Margarete when she was in prison. So please, could you discover the question where Brinkipo, what Brinkipo is, and this very interesting photograph on the cover.
Of course, all Turkish people knew Prinkipo. Prinkipo is a Greek name of the largest Insel. Was heißt Insel, bitte schön auf Englisch?
Island.
Island in the Marmara Meer. And this is it's the largest island, and it's a site of recreation and of excursion, and the couple were there often and walk around the island, and the wonderful wooden building is it was a building for the oh God, mein Englisch.
Say it in German.
Ja, also es war sozusagen von der Schlafwagengesellschaft der Eisenbahn, die nach dem Orient Express, die den Orient Express betrieben hat, die hat dort ein
traveling company
of the Orient Express, and they wanted to build up there a casino and a hotel, and unfortunately it was not allowed by the Turkish state, and then the griechisch-orthodoxe Kirche hat da ein Waisenhaus errichtet, und heute ist es eines der bekanntesten und weltweit geschätzten größten Holzbauten, und ist leider leider gefährdet. Und mir schien es sozusagen als baulicher Symbol und als Artefakt dieser Insel besonders interessant zu sein. Und das andere ist natürlich das Buch ihres Kalenders, nachdem sie Briefe schreiben durfte alle paar Wochen. Also sozusagen dieser extreme Widerspruch zwischen der sinnlichen Erfahrung des Islands, dieser kulturell gesättigten und interessanten Atmosphäre in der Türkei und ihrer Situation im Zuchthaus.
So it was an orphan home, as I understood.
Yes,
a building and a
right.
wooden building. Okay, and it was designed by her or Wilhelm? No, by somebody else. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much.
What is the monument? The building monument is under
protection. It's an old one.
But risky situation now.
Thank you very much. Let me take the last two questions, if I may. It has been quite some time. Ruksan Tuna is asking whether the urban planning they did in Siberia still exists.
Yes, the main structure you can see, especially in the systems of streets, and in some of these cities there are built structures. Novokuznetsk, for example, you can see the half of the city is made and built by Ernst May and colleagues. And in the contrast to Magnitogorsk, what is only a settlement for the workers near the Combine, and the decision was to build the big city Magnitogorsk on the other side of the river Ural in Novokuznetsk in West Siberia. The central districts of the large city Novokuznetsk is now shaped by the typical buildings of the 30s. That means we have to understand that much more objects were built and still are existing, and that's why it is my mission to travel there and to see, and especially the wonderful school by Wilhelm Schütte is in danger to restore and to. So we can see in many cities these treasures of the architects from abroad.
Thank you, Thomas. We have actually two last questions from now on. Emine Görgül has a question. Please, Emine, can we have your question?
Good evening. Thank you so much for very insightful presentations, two presentations. So can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so I would like to ask to learn a little bit more about the return processes of the couple. So I would like to carry on from the discussion about girls' project or women's project, and a bit raise my objection though, but we know that it was the duration which the speakers also reflected this social appreciation of making the habitat unlivable. And in terms of the welfare state condition after the post-war period. So we know that Van Eyck or Herzberg in Netherlands are also dealing with these issues, and Jaap Bakum is also dealing with the open grid structures and housing plans. So I'm wondering about how her design approach and her experience from the Red Vienna and participatory practices, which she was unable maybe to perform on her return, but how her intelligence, how her writings ever translated through the broader acknowledgement of these post-war housing or welfare state, rising the welfare state infrastructures in Vienna after the independence of Austria. Mm-hmm. And can we find any sources? Do you steer us for this?
Okay. In Vienna?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. What to your question, the welfare state, or after when Vienna after 1955, yeah.
Yes,
when
exactly.
Started a new period, yeah, the Second Republic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not much.
Margarete Schütte-Lihotzky was, yeah. What shall I say? Actually, she was not really well known. Yeah, the public council did not reflect her and her experience and her work. Yeah, so I just only told you in very short words that that there was kind of boycott, because she was she still stayed as a communist, as a member of the Communist Party, and she did a lot of monuments and private contracts, and some exhibitions, and had contracts from members of the Communist Party, for example. She did, for example, a big a business house or a printing facility, in Vienna, as well, or one in Carinthia. So she did different things and different tasks in architecture, but in the social housing developing, she was not included. It's a pity. This is a pity. A lot of people in later times, in the 80s, when she was when there was a new focus on her and her works, a lot of people say, why, what happened in Austria? But the whole Austrian society was not able to look back and to reflect that. It needed for a long time to do it. And she herself, in the 1970s, she was already 73, 75. So her work as an architect stopped, or she retired. But she always was thinking about it, and she was thinking about the task of social housing, and thought that living with terraces, that it was the best idea to build houses like small hills, to have one flat, one story on each other, and to have roof terraces for every of the flats, for all of the apartments. Each one should have this access to a free space. And so there really is some text. It's only a text, or there are some drafts, some sketches from her she knows that it's a kind of utopia, how to live tomorrow, called Living Hills.
In German?
Sorry?
Is it in English, or we can access in German?
Only German. We have it. We have all this text and all her. It's only in German. So. It's in the legacy. It's in the estate of the University of Applied Arts. It's interesting. She really thought about all the changes in the 20th century, and thought about mobility and how to live. The people live with more mobility. The people live with more, with the wish to have more green. The important thing is that all women are working. The important thing is that women are now. Are used to work, to have a life, and to spend their life with a paid work, and not only with the work, with the housework or with the domestic work. So it's important to have some facilities for manage all the facility or the housework or the domestics in a big housing estate or complex. So she thought of all these things, and the idea was having hills. So what I see in this is that she as an architect, she was able to think in new structures. She was not like I'm a Viennese woman, I'm a Viennese architect, and I know, as all my colleagues, we are thinking in this rasters, in this grids, like Vienna is made of, But we can see that Margarete she was a global woman. Yeah, she was a global thinking woman. She was able to think in very new and very often structures. Yeah, that's amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Kristin. Comments and questions are kind of flowing in the chat. We kind of would like to ask a few more because I think there's a great interest in the couple. Karin has a question, so maybe I should first start from Karin. We have 2 questions as last questions. That's the plan for now.
Well, thank you very much, Mrs. Zwingli and Mr. Fleer, for these wonderful presentations. And I'm amazed to see how big the interest of the audience is and how the questions are flowing in. I have one short question, because after having been in Ankara for 3 years and working in a building that was designed by another Austrian architect, I wonder, are there any sources on the relationship between Margarete Schütte-Lihotzky and Clemens Holzmeister? What was their relation? Was there any relation, or how would you define it? Thank you.
Thomas, do you want to ask? I know there was no relation. Yeah. So as far as I know, yeah, to Clemens Holzmeister, only to Herbert Eichholzer, yeah, and his to Holzmeister's office. But Thomas, maybe he knows more about it.
Yes, I can say that Clemens Holzmeister has a stable position in the Turkey construction because he had the biggest buildings to build, parliament and so on, ministries and so on, and he has a wonderful house on the Bosporus in Tarabia, and Suma Hotel, the former Suma Hotel, unfortunately it doesn't exist yet, as I know, and I saw some photos, and because it is a hotel with separate rooms, he could located his studio as an architect in the hotel. He can live there, and his colleagues like as Eichholzer and Stefan Simoni and Ines Victoria Meyer and other can live in the same house, and this is a special situation of communication of the Mitarbeiter, collaborators of Clemens Holzmeister, and that's why Herbert Eichholzer, who initiated the resistance organization in Tarabia, he lived there. He was a couple with Ines Victoria Meyer and other women at the same time, and he organized the resistance fight there. And of course, Wilhelm and Margarete Schütte-Lihotzky took part in these discussions and in the organization of a resistance group, and they met in this Suma Hotel in Tarabia. And that's why we have to see the basic situation of this hotel and the possibility to discuss. And one fact is very important, that Clemens Holzmeister most of the time was not there because he was in Argentina or Brasilia or jedenfalls in Latin America, and he had to work there, and that's why there was a wonderful situation. The chief was not present, and the collaborators can organize communist resistance, and it was a wonderful situation. And but this was the fact, I would say, from 1938 in the autumn in 1939, and then Holzmeister went to Latin America, and that's why there was this center of resistance. And but it's very interesting that the Gestapo knew this situation in Vienna, and that means that the discovering of the illegal organization was very wide by the Gestapo informers, and especially the two, she wrote about him, and all the historians knows about that. But Clemens Holzmeister maybe tolerated this situation. I don't think he knew all the details of this situation at this home, at this studio and the former Suma Hotel.
Thank you, Thomas.
Can I add something about the network to Clemens Holzmeister from the estate?
Yeah, if it is very brief, please.
Yeah, okay.
I have two more questions to go because.
Okay. Now, I think there's just one letter in the estate. It's from the past post-war years, but I think they, Holzmeister and Schütte-Lihotzky, they worked in different networks. So Schütte-Lihotzky was for many, many years away from Austria, and Clemens Holzmeister was a very important cultural, political person in Austria, and he was quite very Catholic, and she was very communist. So I think they respected each other very much and their work, but they didn't really fit together in the same political system in a way. So it was a kind of polite distance. So this was my appearance.
Thank you, Bernadette, for that fit-in information. One question to speakers, to both of you, is this from Pınar. By any chance, do any one of you encounter any information from the experiences of the occupants who lived in or used the designs of Schütte-Lihotzky? So do you know anybody? Did you read about any family who had lived or used their designs?
I'm not sure if I understand.
By chance, I mean the people.
So, soweit ich verstanden. Sorry, can I translate in German? Sure. Soweit ich verstanden habe, wie weit die Bewohner oder Nutzerinnen des Designs aus der Frankfurter Küche oder in den Wohnhäusern, ob man da was weiß.
Wirklich? Ja, das hat sie gemacht. Der Frankfurter Küche? No.
Überhaupt von ihrem Design und wie sie das.
Ja, eben, ja. Maybe I try to answer. The question was very open and very wide. Is it? In Frankfurt, they built more than 10,000 flats with Frankfurt kitchens. And the Frankfurt kitchens were in use till the 80s or 90s of the last century. Well, maybe people changed it afterwards, and I think a lot of very certified users. There were a lot of very certified users. If I want to, but I want to answer the question in another way, because when we change now to the exhibition, which is coming now, to Viennese flats and apartments, we asked a lot of or different inhabitants of flats of the old buildings, yeah, of the Werkbundsiedlung in Vienna, of the Otto Haashof of the 1920s, built in the 1920s, and everywhere the people are still living inside. Yeah, they like these buildings. Of course, there are some changes. Of course, there is modernization, and there is a new bathroom, or there is now a bathroom, and there were none. But the atmosphere, how to use it, and how to come there, and how to enter the house, how to enter it, the staircase, and the and all the surrounding. Is that people like it, yeah. Mm-hmm. Maybe it's an answer to your question, yeah.
Thank you, Kristen. I think there is a great now interest, building up on Schütte-Lihotzky. I'm pretty much sure more researchers will go after you to learn more about her. and her works. Maybe I just conclude with one question. Actually, the question is about why they had to leave their country, because they were modern or because of their ideology or for another reason. That's a question from one of our participants who actually joined late. So he missed the beginning part of the lecture. So maybe you can just, with one sentence, say why they had to leave their country, and then that would be both a reminder of what happened and also the end of our talks.
Shall I answer? Margarete left Vienna in 1926, yeah, and she was called from Ernst May to come to Frankfurt am Main. She was called because of her expertise in designing or dealing with the social housing problem, to designing apartments, designing small houses, small homes, designing or using rationalization in designing. All these thoughts and examples were new Ernst May already. So this was kind of expertise she had, and therefore she went to to Frankfurt. And there she met Wilhelm, and Margarete and Wilhelm left Frankfurt in the 1930, because in Frankfurt there was ein wirtschaftliches Problem, also ein what was it?
Economical problem. A worldwide economic problem. So in
worldwide economic problem. Yeah, it was in 1929 with the Black Friday, and there was a worldwide lack, and the building machines stopped in Frankfurt and in Germany and in Western Europe. But in the Soviet Union, they did big industrialization programs and big housing programs for the industrialization, for the new industrialization. There was this 5-year plan going on. So this was why the experts were called to Moscow.
I think there's a larger problem behind how to translate and to communicate the experiences of modern movement worldwide in the 30s and in the after-war period, and how we can organize today these experiences to exchange our experiences. Of course, the step from Vienna to Frankfurt am Main is not so far in that time before, and today not, but to the Soviet Union, of course, it was a large step, and it was a spectacular political event. And after the Nazi dictator came on power, of course, it was not able to go back to Germany. And after the occupation of Austria, it was not able to go back to Vienna. And you have to see that there are many tragic moments in the life of Margarete Schütte-Lihotzky and Wilhelm Schütte. They were not yet a couple after the liberation, after the end of the war. They left each other some years after the end of the war. And of course, Margarete Schütte-Lihotzky tried to give their experiences to other societies. She was many months and several months in the German Democratic Republic to give experiences for kindergarten guideline programs and so on. She was in Cuba to try to encourage their programs for social housing and children's facilities and so on. And many times she had make the experience that she was outside. She was only for some time invited, and then the own experts take over the rule, like as in Turkey, the new generation of national Turkish architects or the Soviet architects. It's a very problematic experience to go abroad and to try to transmit experiences. And we are now living a time of a large migration. Many colleagues of you and of other countries are living in other abroad, and we have to organize our exchange of experiences, I would say. And that's why we can be encouraged by the life of Margarete Schütte-Lihotzky. She had to try to hold their mission for social constructing housing and in front of these very hard living conditions for her.
Thank you, Thomas, and thank you all thank you the audience for their interest, for their questions and contributions. I think it's been quite some time, so maybe we can start. We can switch to opening of the exhibition. Would you like? I'm going to share the poster of the exhibition and then the web browser. I will open the exhibition. You can visit there. Maybe meanwhile I'm opening all those documents. Hocam, as the head of the association, and Kristen as the creator of the exhibition would like to say something.
Thank you, Neris. Very briefly, in collaboration with Schütte-Lihotzky and the Austrian Embassy at Ankara, we are very pleased to bring one exhibition of Schütte-Lihotzky to Ankara as an online exhibition. If there was no pandemic, of course, this would be a physical exhibition, but we have adapted to the conditions and designed an exhibition hall, an online exhibition hall on behalf of our association, into which the original panels of the exhibition in German has been loaded together with Turkish translations. So the exhibition created by Kristen Zwingel is there in the exhibition hall right now. It's open to your visit, and it will stay there until late December. And the exhibition, of course, shows the work of Schütte-Lihotzky, the work on residential architecture in Vienna, with interesting drawings and texts, and also a short biography also of her life. So I take this opportunity to thank Kristen for sharing this exhibition with the association, and to Karin, who helped to realize this project finally after maybe 5 or 6 years of waiting. So that's all from me. I hope you will enjoy the exhibition, and I leave the floor to Kristen as the curator of the exhibition to say a few words about it.
Okay.
Yes, Kristen.
So, thank you very much. Thank you very much for sharing and for using our exhibition. We are really pleased to see our exhibition in that way now as an online exhibition. It's first time that we can see this exhibition hall that you now create. Yeah, we want to have this topic residential building construction of Margarete Schütte-Lihotzky. A lot of Viennese architects and experts know a lot about her first years, about the her times in the 1920s and maybe 1932, the Werkbundsiedlung. But if you want to have a look at her whole life, at her whole lifetime and her social housing ideas, you have to look at it together, to the beginning times, to the 1920s, to the 1930s, and then in Vienna after Second World War, in the Reconstruction time, in the 1950s and 1960s, there are some buildings. When people look nowadays at these buildings, they are in not a very good condition, and they are in a not like people wouldn't like it. But if you try to understand what was the development of housing and building construction, and what was the focus in the 60s and what was in the 70s and 80s, then we can watch that all the times Margarete Schütte-Lihotzky had her focus to do social housing, to look at all the topics of recreation, of living, of sleeping, of eating, of cooking, of work, of housework, of domestic work, of all the different facts, social housing has to deal with. It is a very complex idea. It's a very complex topic or task to fulfill if you really want to do very good housing projects. Housing projects, on the other hand, were always urban planning projects. Housing is the thing which is building our city. So as you see, it's nice. I see it's now coming. The settlement movement in the 1920s, and at the end, I mentioned it already, her ideas in the 1990s, when she spoke about our future of living is with the exit to a green terrace, to a roof garden, to facilities which give the opportunity to all people to of living, to have inclusive buildings, that we should have inclusive buildings, building for everyone and for every people, with all our, on every edge, on every kind of moving and conditions. So nowadays we can say it was really a very complex thinking, so I invite you to look at this exhibition from the first tablet, from the first panel to the last one, because it's something like a circle, which leads from the settlement movement to her last ideas in the 1990s. And once more, thank you very much for sharing this exhibition.
Thank you very much for, first of all, the speakers for their insightful talks. I think it was a very motivating and enlightening night for us. Definitely there will be lots of more research on this amazing woman, her works and her life. So finally, we hope to see all of you for our later events as well. Let's keep in touch in those days of isolation. These events seem to be kind of diminishing the distances between us, so that we can have Kristen from Vienna and Thomas from Berlin and Karin from upstairs in our association joining the event. So many thanks to all of you, and hope to see you again sometime. Please visit the exhibition and share your comments with us. Thank you all, and we send our best greetings from the association to everybody who are with us still. Good night.
Good night.
Thank you very much. Goodbye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Maybe one small note about the
website. The link that I sent previously is mistaken. Please use the second link. Okay. If you follow the link that I sent later, you can easily reach the online exhibition. Thank you for bearing with us throughout 2.5 hours. See you.